Membership means more with American Express Business Gold. Earn 4 times membership rewards points in your top 2 eligible spending categories every month, including eligible U.S. advertising purchases and select media, and U.S. purchases at restaurants, including takeout and delivery. What are you waiting for? Get the card that flexes with your spending every month. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
Every cup of Nespresso coffee is an invitation to transform your morning routine into a ritual you can treasure each and every day. Using the Virtuo Pup, a simple touch of the button freshly brews bold aromas and a rich, velvety crema layer for delicious cafe-quality coffee at home. Whether you enjoy your coffee hot or over ice, every sip, every morning is unforgettable. Nothing tastes like Nespresso coffee. Visit Nespresso.com or our app to explore our full range of easy-to-use machines and coffees not found anywhere else.
Welcome to NatureBacked, Ramanan.
Thank you, Dharmo. I'm happy to be here, happy to be in dialogue.
The few words, what are you building these days?
So I co-manage Amasia with my business partner, and we're a small boutique early-stage venture firm, primarily investing in the US, but a portion of our portfolio is in Southeast Asia. We have offices in the Bay Area and in Singapore, small team, 5 people. And think of us as a general purpose VC firm that 5 years ago concluded that sustainability-related investing, climate-related investing, and we use those terms sometimes interchangeably, is going to be one of the great economic trends of our time, of the next few decades. So our conclusion was, there's lots of different areas that small VC firms can specialize in. We elected to specialize in sustainability and climate. So we built a very robust thesis, which I know we'll talk about a little bit as we go along. Mm-hmm. And for the last 5 years, that's been our focus. We invest from the seed to Series A as first point of entry, sometimes as early as pre-seed. We have occasionally come in as late as a Series B. Check sizes between 1 million and 5 million per round. We've done bigger checks for certain follow-ons. We've done much smaller checks for pre-seed companies, but that's typically the range. Mm. We're not prolific, so we make 1 or 2 what we call core investments a year, and we get pretty engaged with those companies. So that's them. Oh, one more thing, and we'll probably get to this as we talk about thesis. It's primarily software-based businesses. My own history is 30 plus years of VC and growth equity investing in software. And so we've taken the expertise we have, the opportunity we saw in sustainability and climate, and married that to the economic opportunity that lies in front of us.
A couple of investment per year. 5 years of this focus, we can almost get into most of your investment in the portfolio. But what kind of sustainability software companies do you have in your portfolio? What are they doing?
Well, when we wrote our thesis, this was 5 years ago, we wrote our thesis, we put it on our website. I wrote a book, which you can still buy on Amazon. No, I'm not here to try and pitch my book.
But we will add a link to the show notes. Don't worry.
Okay, well, even better. And what I would say is when we began, we wanted to make the thesis pretty understandable. So we called it the 4 R's of behavior change. We realized that every time I said that, people's eyes glazed over and they wanted to lie down and take a nap. So we made it a little more concrete by tying it to specific themes. So the answer to your question is 5 themes: AI and data for sustainability, so the circular economy, sustainable supply chains, sustainable cities, and clean energy transitions. And I apologize to your audience if you can hear my dog.
Don't worry. You don't need to apologize for dogs in this show. Maybe cats.
Yes, there is a dog. The dog is not far from me, and we may hear the dog. Let's talk about those 5 themes briefly, because I want to give you, because even that seems pretty high level. What are examples? So on AI and data for sustainability, a great example in our portfolio is Clarity, which is an air quality management solutions business. If you're in Estonia and you want to measure air pollution and you're the capital city, the municipality that runs the capital city, you would buy Clarity devices and their software platform, which both measures, analyzes, and interprets air pollution data of various kinds. So that's an example. And you need that data to respond to climatic changes of various kinds, including traffic patterns and so on. In the circular economy, a great example is Topanga, which is a SaaS business that sells to campuses. Sometimes those campuses means universities and colleges. Sometimes it means senior living. Sometimes it means large corporations. And they slap on a QR code onto any container and can then track the reuse of that container through time. I'm doing a poor job of explaining the business, but it's at scale, it has a pretty dramatic effect on emissions. So that's an example of the circular economy. And we can talk more about the circular economy in a second. Sustainable supply chains is super interesting for us. We've made a couple of bets there. The one I will highlight is TreeDots, which is in Singapore, which helps cut waste from the food supply chain in Southeast Asia. As you know, food waste is an enormous contributor to climate change. And so that's what this company does. So, I could go on, but I think you basically get the picture here, that we invest behind themes and then we invest behind specific companies within those themes.
The circular economy, big topic. We have had a few companies in the show who have been doing something innovative there. Often they have been related to maybe plastics recycling or some kind of material recycling things. Looking at the NatureBank's philosophy, take is basically that the economy should be based on nature's ability to sustain life on this planet. I think circular economy is kind of crucial part in that equation. Otherwise, it wouldn't ever work in any way.
No. I would agree with that. But this is an opportunity for me to tie things a little bit to our thesis, whose fundamental foundation is the idea of behavior change. And when we talk about recycling materials, underlying all of this is the idea that there is consumption. And our thesis is built around the idea that there is excessive consumption. And while we will, because we're a technological species, we will look for technological ways to solve these problems. Really, in the end, nothing's going to work if we don't change how and how much we consume. And so when it comes to the circular economy and thinking about recycling materials, I think that's important, valuable. We can have a separate discussion around whether some of these companies should be venture-backed or not, which is really something that came out of and it came out of our study of Clean Tech 1.0. We can talk about that. But, in a sense, when we only have those solutions, we're not really addressing in a fundamental way the root issue, which is consumption. And I think a lot of the pieces of our thesis, when they come together and work harmoniously, come back to the idea that we need to really help people consume less. And when I say that, and this is really important, if you're poor in Laos or Indonesia, you're just rising to the level of comfort and rising out of poverty. That's not the group that we are talking about that needs to reduce consumption. If you haven't flown commercial in 30 years because you've been flying private, and you have 7 homes and 19 cars, remember, you can't sit in 19 cars at the same time. So I'm using that as an extreme example. I think these examples apply to all of us. And so I think, I don't want to lose that as we talk about the circular economy, because I don't want to give the affluent a free pass.
But the challenge I see is that I totally agree with you that the actual kind of consumption and the behavioral change is kind of desperately needed for anything major to change. But at the same time, out of all the things in the world, I think the human behavior is the toughest one to actually change.
Sure.
So, and also at the same time, there's also a lot, looking at the climate change patterns, there's a lot of, how to say, hopelessness among the, especially younger crowd who see that, basically you and me, the generation of ours has kind of fucked it up, so to say, nicely. And the climate change has already, or the kind of the global warming has already reached 1.5 degrees, which was target for, I don't know for how long in the future.
Right.
So kind of changing the behavior when you see that nothing much changes is quite a challenge. Do you have any good tips, or have you seen any of your portfolio companies doing something amazing on actually changing the consumer behavior?
Oh, yeah. I mean, our whole thesis is built around it. So with each of our companies, I can talk to a behavior change element. I think it's important to emphasize that when I say behavior change, immediately people, including me, tend to think of this as consumer behavior, meaning you and I and the younger generation and how we're behaving at a very personal level. That's an important part of it. But a lot of our investee companies operate within the supply chain or infrastructure so as to help catalyze this behavior change without you and I needing to do a whole lot about it. A great example is the company I mentioned before, Topanga, where even if you don't want to reuse, you will end up reusing if you go to a university or a senior living, or you're at a senior living facility that uses these products. So I think the degree to which behavior change elements are baked into technologies that we use in all of our collectives, whether it's companies or campuses or other places, I think that is a lot of what we mean by behavior change.
Mm-hmm.
Having said all of that, we have a couple of consumer-facing businesses, and a great example is the Commons. Commons is a consumer app. It allows you to do two different things. One, it connects to your credit card if you want it to connect to your credit card, analyzes all of your expenditures, and tells you how you can make more sustainable choices. And for those who want, you can actually also offset using carbon offsets, which is a separate topic we should discuss. You can offset the excess purchases from an emission standpoint. The other thing they do is give you a handle on sustainable brands. And my favorite example is socks. Socks? Really? Sustainable socks? Well, the answer is if you're buying something, you may as well buy the most sustainable example there is of it. And I can go to Commons and I have figured out what are the most sustainable socks, which I would like your audience to know that I bought those sustainable socks and I'm wearing them as we speak.
You don't have to show them, okay?
I definitely won't, and I draw the line at socks. We will not go any further.
Yeah.
Neither of these things quite addresses the issue that you touched on, which is that of hopelessness. I am full of hope. I am very full of hope. My view is, at any given point in time, mankind has faced various catastrophes. 30,000 years ago, whenever it was, there was a bottleneck in how we were migrating out of Africa, and there is some science to show that we may have been down to a few thousand people as a species. In 1800, as you know, Malthus thought that human population was just going to implode because it had reached its limits, and the examples go on. So I think at any given point in time, it may seem dark and bleak, but I think the work that we do, you do, I do, is born out of hope. And so if I were talking to a young person, I would say, this is easy to say, but I'll say it, control what you can control, right? You can't control the guy who's flying private and lives in 9 homes, but you can control how you live. And if so, do that and derive satisfaction from it and serve as a model for your cohort.
Absolutely. That's a good beginning.
This episode is brought to you by Nerds Gummy Clusters, the sweet treat that always elevates the vibe. With a sweet gummy surrounded with tangy, crunchy nerds, every bite of Nerds Gummy Clusters brings you a whole new world of flavor. Whether it's game night, on the way to a concert, or kicking back with your crew, unleash your senses with Nerds Gummy Clusters.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day, and that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
The other big investment themes, circular. You didn't include carbon offsets there, right?
No. Well, we don't view those as a theme, right? We view them as a tool. They've gone through their periods of, carbon offsets are going to solve the world's problems. Carbon offsets are the worst thing ever, and they're all a scam. So we have not really viewed offsets as an investable theme for us. The Commons example, it's sort of, they're using offsets as a tool to offer consumers who wish to offset their excess emissions. But we've always found as an investment theme, it's a little on the squishy side. And the verification. I mean, the significant problems with offsets, as you know, and so we are mindful of
that. Absolutely, and they are, typically rather local, and basically, the harm has been done when you need to buy the offset. So it's.
Yeah, I mean, no, okay. There's circular logic around offsets that has never made a whole lot of sense to me. Having said that. I think if you have quality offsets and they're very highly verified, they are one of many arrows in the quiver, and in my view, not the most important arrow. I think the most important arrow is changing behavior to reduce consumption.
Absolutely. Looking ahead into the 2025, what are your, big milestones or big things you want to get done this year?
Well, on a personal level, I would like to continue driving towards more sustainable purchasing. I've frankly done a poor job of that. So that's just my little goal. And that includes, by the way, reducing consumption very significantly, which I've done a good job of over the last 5 years. So I wanted everyone to know my New Year's resolution. So on the private side, that's my goal. On the amasia front, an area that we have done nothing in, and even though it's a theme, is the clean energy transition. And, how do we really improve energy reliability and efficiency and facilitate the uptake of clean energy, as we say on our website. And here, remember, we're looking for software companies, right? So electrical grid management, energy asset management, these are all areas that we've poked around at in a very surface way, but my hope is that in 2025 we'll see more companies that fit. We think 25 and 26 will be difficult years for sustainability-focused companies from a financing standpoint, and the paradox, as you know, is that makes it an interesting time to invest, right?
I've heard investors are typically happy during those times, at least looking, those investors who are not in the, let's say, cash flow challenges.
Correct, who aren't in a panic. So the clean energy transition is an area that is of high interest to us. I think we will continue looking at things in the sustainable supply chain sphere. And I would love to do more in the circular economy. The issue with the circular economy from a venture standpoint is many companies are sort of Me Too companies. We've got to remember the circular economy was one of the first things that went online because eBay was founded 30 years ago, right? And we need more software and market-driven innovation in those spaces. It's one reason we fell in love with Topanga, and we'd like to find more companies like that.
You mentioned that 25 and 26 will be challenging years for the sustainability companies. What are the main reasons? Is it just the global investment flows
No. I mean, I'll give you my opinion. My general view is, as venture investors, you have to ignore politics because our companies will be here in this administration, the next one, the one after that. And so if you get too swayed one way or the other, that's not a good thing. The reason I think these will be difficult years is, when we wrote our thesis, we studied Cleantech 1.0, and there's a blog post on our website that talks to it. And one of the key learnings was a lot of companies got funded for whom early stage venture capital funds are not really the right source of funding. And here I'm referring to very capex intensive businesses where you need hundreds of millions of dollars or billions to get to liftoff. And these are not always best suited to early stage VC. And they often require scientific skills that most VCs, not all, but most VCs actually don't possess. So you have the perfect storm of companies that shouldn't be venture-backed, that are coupled with investors who may not have the skills and knowledge. And our hope when we wrote our thesis was Cleantech 2.0 would be different. And unfortunately, it wasn't, right? A whole bunch of things got funded, and you know the companies that I'm talking about, a whole bunch of things got funded that really shouldn't have had venture funding. And in 25 and 26, I think that market shakeout will fully unfold. And so I think it will be challenging years.
So good, so good, so good.
Great brands, great prices. Everyone's got a reason to rack.
Because they have framed jeans.
Nike? Yes.
Just so many good brands.
Vince, Kurt Geiger London, Rag & Bone, and more are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. You never know what you'll find, but you know it's going to be so good. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
What's if you're, building a clean tech or a sustainability startup in 2025? What's the solution? Just, put your head low and cut the costs to minimum, or how do you survive this crunch?
Oh, so kind of, if you're already running such a company, what do you do now?
Yeah.
I think you've put your finger on the first thing you do, which is to shrink to the minimum viable team, and you do that relatively quickly. This is much easier for me to say than to actually do it. Because it's hard, right? You've built something, and your worry is if we shrink down to the bare minimum, we're going to lose the market opportunity. But I am in the camp, and not everyone is in this camp. I'm in the camp of you're better off living to fight another day, because environments change. They change dramatically. And so I think you want to survive and hunker down. I think second, to my earlier points, you really want to think about whether the solution you're working on has real commercial scale possibilities in your target market. And I think you want to be honest with yourself on that. And if your conclusion is no, it isn't, then you have multiple choices. One is the obvious one, which is you just declare failure and move on. But the other is to think about new markets. Yet another is to think about variations on the product. I think it's a time to be very disciplined. What you should not do, in my opinion, is lose hope, right? You started this business because you believe this is one of the great problems of our time, and you are passionate about it. A business succeeding or failing is not a reason to lose that hope and passion. It really isn't. And if you're losing that hope and passion, you want to think about how committed you were to it in the first place.
The bold solution is probably also to rethink the financing options. If everybody around you is shrinking and trying to survive, you go to, I don't know, the non-classical VC route, try to find funding from somewhere else and scale when everybody else is dying around you.
Yeah, so I'm in strong agreement. I can't name the company, but I can tell you at least one company in our portfolio has reacted to looks like a tough time for climate and sustainability by doubling and tripling down on getting their solution out to the world with very positive results, right? And so, I mean, your point has two parts. One is for the founder and the founding team to, in fact, view this as an opportunity to get their company more visibility, potentially with customers or prospects. So that's one part. The other part of your point is to look at financing sources that are not classic early stage VC firms. We are lemmings in the VC business. If someone's jumping off a cliff, we all want to jump off a cliff. But there are other categories of investors. Specifically, I'm thinking of families, family offices, who have a very different lens and a very different timeline and think about portfolio construction very differently. And look, this is easier said than done. Family offices have been waived as the solution to everyone's problems for the last 25 years. They have their own issues and their own challenges. But I think forcing yourself to think more creatively about capital providers, I think, is important.
Absolutely. And I hope that's a tip to the startup founders listening to the show also. I'm sure most of them are already working on it, but just as a reminder to look wider around you when you try to raise your next funding round from those VCs who are scared of your climate tech startup in 2025.
Right.
Good. Thank you, Ramanan, for this discussion. Thanks for your time and good luck taking up those challenges in the sustainability field.
It's a great mission. I want to thank you for hosting me. I want to thank you for the amazing podcast you host, and you should also keep going. And I hope to come back in 3 years, and the sun will be shining and the birds will be chirping.
Yes, that's a good plan. Let's do that. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
If you like the show, subscribe and leave a good rating on the podcast platform of your choice. It would mean a world to us.
For those of you who dream of a world where music and podcasts live together in perfect harmony, now, for the first time, Electricast gives you a magical compilation, Pod Till You Drop, Volume 1, where we give you the best in tunes and the best in podcasts. Feast your ears and hear the culture. Available now wherever you listen to music.
Ever thought about starting your own podcast?
Do you have a business or a message you want to share with the world?
Well, now it's easier than ever with Electricast. Hi, I'm Mark Netter.
And I'm Peter Rafelson. We're the founders of Electricast Media.
Whether you want to start a new podcast or already have one, join Electricast to grow your audience, monetize your content, and build your community.
With our simple sign-up, you get free promotion, world-class analytics, premium ads, and personal support.
Go to electricast.com and join our community today.
Electricast. Transform your influence.
Electricast. Electricast.